Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy, a one stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. Let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper. These are the topics that we shall be discussing today. And if these sessions of the Hindu newspaper is helping and aiding your current affairs preparation, then do not forget to press the like button and subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. But before we start, two important announcements: lack of consistency, declining motivation, fear of answer writing. These are the challenges that single civil services aspirant faces daily. And to overcome these challenges, we at Unacademy IAS English, we have launched a new program called Unacademy Platinum, where all your English educators will be teaching you live, will be monitoring your performance, giving you targets as well, also evaluating your answer copies to make you mains ready. If you want to experience the free Unacademy Platinum session that we will be conducting today at 7 o'clock, then the link to register is provided in the video description. And join us live today at 7 p.m. But if you are self motivated, if you have consistency in your preparation, all you need is a structured learning program in the form of live classes or notes through which you can prepare the complete GS and CSAT syllabus. Then for you, we have Unacademy Plus, which is now India's most affordable learning program. For 12 months, this subscription is available at 17,999. Go to our website if you want to enroll, subscribe to this program. You might see a different price being quoted on the website, but use this code and you will automatically unlock 17,999 subscription fee. Let's get started and let's look at Operation Sindoor. By now, I'm sure you would have read a lot about this operation. You would have watched a lot of videos, but maybe then you are confused. Confused as to what is relevant from this Operation Sindoor for your civil services examination. What all do you need to remember and keep in mind when it comes to the requirement of the civil services examination? And if you're worried, don't worry now. We have got you covered. And today we will discuss Operation Sindoor strictly from the requirements of the civil services examination. But listen to me carefully. We say normally states have army, but in Pakistan, the army has a state. And that is what we call the deep state, the Pakistani army, along with its inter services intelligence. General Asim Munir, the Pakistan army chief, in April was speaking to the Pakistani expats. And he gave a speech which was very provocative. Provocative in the sense, he said that Hindus and Muslims are two separate communities with different ideologies, different aspirations, and that is why Hindus and Muslims cannot live together. So, according to him, they should be thankful to Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who coined this two nation theory and called for the separate state of Pakistan. So, he was referring to the two nation theory propounded by Jinnah. And then he also called Kashmir its jugular vein. And he called Kashmir an unfinished agenda of the partition. And he also made reference to Balochistan, and in which he alleged that India is involved in the illegal terrorist activities carried out in Balochistan. And he was specifically referring to the attack on the Jafar Express, where more than 20 Pakistani army men were killed when the terrorists or the militants belonging to the Balochistan Liberation Army carried out the attack on the Jafar Express, the train which was carrying out Pakistani military personnel. And he said, "We will avenge it." Then, within days of this provocative speech, we saw an attack at Pahalgam, a scenic location in Jammu and Kashmir, where, let's not forget, the terrorists who were trained and sponsored by Pakistan crossed the line of control, entered into Pahalgam, and started identifying the victims based on their religion. So non Muslims were separated and they were killed. Children and women were spared. Why? Because these terrorists wanted eyewitnesses so that these eyewitnesses can tomorrow tell the world, tell the Indians, look what the terrorists have done to the Hindu men. Terrorists have an objective, which is to cause fear in the minds of the population. But this time, the objective was not just to cause fear in the minds of the people, it was also to play on the ethnic divisions that we have in our country. So, when these terrorists attacked these men, in which 26 men were killed, 25 from India, one from Nepal, they told these men and the women who were spared that go and tell this to Modi what we have done. Not tell this to army, but tell this to Modi, which means it was a clear provocation and at the same time singling out victims on the basis of their religion. It was to generate fear, but at the same time drive communal tensions in the rest of the country. Why? Because that is the Pakistan's philosophy. Pakistan has been defeated in all the wars which it fought against us, whether it is 1965 war or 1971 or 1999 Kargil. But once Pakistan realized that we cannot win a conventional war with India, General Ziaul Haq, who was the military dictator, he started a policy called bleeding India through thousand cuts. The intention is to defeat India. Now, whether directly we can defeat India or not, let's leave that aside. Let's start training young men in arms and ammunition and throw them through the line of control. Let them cross the line of control and start terror activities inside Jammu and Kashmir and in other parts of the country. So, bleed India through thousand cuts. That was the philosophy of Ziaul Haq. And that is what these terrorists, that is what the Pakistani deep state wants. One, to drive wedge between two communities in India on the basis of religion, and at the same time to inculcate fear in the mind of the people. In response to this Pahalgam attack, the Indian Armed Forces, the brave Jawans, carried out a very successful clinical strikes in Pakistan known as Operation Sindoor. But listen to me carefully. Look at the word Operation Sindoor of this operation and look at this picture on your screen. When these men were killed in Pahalgam, some of them were newlyweds as well. So the sindoor of these newlywed women was wiped off by these terrorists. And to avenge, as retribution for that horrific assault, Operation Sindoor was launched to avenge the wiping of Sindoor of these newlywed women. That's number one. Number two, because the objective also was to drive communal wedge between two communities in India. And look at the picture on your screen. When a press conference was conducted, you saw a colonel of the Indian Army belonging to a Muslim faith, a wing commander belonging to the Sikh faith, and a foreign secretary belonging to the Hindu faith, giving out a clear signal in a press conference that we are not going to be victims of this Pakistani onslaught. We will avenge it. And at the same time, what these terrorists wanted to do to drive wedge between communities, we will not let these terrorists become successful in that endeavor. But when this Operation Sindoor was launched, the Defense Ministry said that we targeted the terror camps, not just in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, but also in the heart of Pakistan, in Lahore, in Punjab, which is considered to be the elite of Pakistan. More predominantly were the attacks which were carried out on the headquarters of Jaish-e Mohammed in Bahawalpur, as well as the training ground and the headquarter of Lashkar-e-Toiba at Muridke, and also the training grounds belonging to Hizbul Mujahideen. And these strikes were different. Different in the sense, for close to 26 minutes, the missiles were launched on these terror camps, because of which these terror camps got destroyed, which basically means that it will take time for these terror organizations to regroup and mount another attack on India. And at the same time, LOC was not crossed. Right from the Indian side, missiles were fired at these terror camps. And this is to give a signal to Pakistan and the terrorists. And what is that signal? In the words of the statement coming from Israel, wherein they lauded this Indian Operation Sindoor, They said terrorists should know that they have no hiding place on this planet. So, whether these terrorists are in Pakistan occupied Kashmir or in the heart of Pakistan, in Punjab or in other parts, they should know that they have no hiding ground, they have no hiding place, because we can detect them from any place on this planet and mount a credible deterrence. That is the significance of these attacks. But for the civil services examination, what else do you need? This is United Nations Charter of 1945, because after the Second World War, United Nations was born, and the single objective of United Nations was to prevent a third world war. And that is why Article 2 of this United Nations Charter categorically states that no state can use force against another state. No country can use force against another country, its territorial integrity, its sovereignty. But this use of force does not apply if a country is acting in self defense. If there was an attack which was mounted by Pakistan, and it is not just one off attack, Pakistan has carried out these overt or covert operations right from the time it was born. So, whether it is the Pathankot attack or the Uri attack or the 2611 attacks or the parliament attack where the temple of Indian democracy was attacked in 2001, Pakistan has carried out these misadventures number of times, umpteen times. But the response from India has been different. Different in the sense, initially, we resorted to economic assault, we resorted to diplomatic interventions, where we tried to pull pressure on Pakistan to desist from these activities, but Pakistan is not learning. After 2611 attacks, because of the diplomatic power that India possesses, Pakistan was isolated diplomatically throughout the world. And hence, Pakistan was placed under Financial Action Task Force, grey list, because it is a strong testament that the world also recognizes that Pakistan is a terror factory. It is housing, stationing, training terrorists who are launching war against India. But then this time, since no self respecting country which wants and aspires to become a global superpower, it cannot tolerate such crimes against humanity where victims are targeted because of their faith. And that is why this time the response had to be different. This time the response was completely different. How? The 1960 Indus Water Treaty. You would have read about that. Chetan sir has also discussed this. Indus Water Treaty was kept under abeyance. Another diplomatic pressure. We started engaging with United Nations Security Council members and other countries which are closer to Pakistan as well, for example, Saudi, for example, UAE, and tried to put diplomatic pressure on Pakistan so that Pakistan should not escalate it further. And at the same time, we stopped all the direct or indirect trade with Pakistan, closed the borders as well, closed the checkposts as well, whether it is Atari or Kartarpur. And since this time, we had to mount an even more credible offense, assault on Pakistan. That is why this time it was more targeted at the terror camps. And we have said that these attacks were non escalatory in nature. We did not attack the military establishment of Pakistan. We attacked only the terror camps, which are stationed in Pakistan occupied Kashmir and in the heart of Pakistan. And what is the origin of this right of self defense? Let me take you back to 1837 when there was a Canadian rebellion. Canadian rebellion, these rebels from Canada, they used US steamer Caroline. Why? To transport arms from the US side to Canada. Canada was under the control of the Britain. Then what British forces did while they were crossing New York, they attacked and burned this Caroline, this steamer, which also killed one American. This led to diplomatic tussle between United States and Britain. And few years later, in 1841, what US Secretary of State Daniel Webster said, he propounded or formulated this Caroline standard for self-defense. And what is this self-defense? If you are mounted with an attack, now you have to defend yourself. And sometimes you can even anticipate an attack. The attack may not have taken place, but you can anticipate an attack. And this attack can be threatening to you. Even in anticipation of that attack, you can mount an assault on the enemy. And that is what we call the Caroline standard for self defense, where if the necessity is instant, if there is no time for you to deliberate what should be our response to this imminent attack coming from the enemy, you can mount an attack in self defense. And this is what was used by United States as well. When 9/11 attacks took place, the United States said, we are acting in our self defense and we will mount a war on Afghanistan because Afghanistan is housing Osama bin Laden, who is the mastermind of these 9/11 attacks. So a country acting in self defense is legitimate. And this time, India was acting in the self defense. Why? Because there was a clear attack coming from Pakistan in the form of Pahalgam. What are then the options available with Pakistan? What Pakistan can also do? One, Pakistan may also retaliate. Retaliate how? Maybe use its air force to cross the line of control and hit military targets in India. If that happens, then it may lead to a full blown war between India and Pakistan because that would be an escalation ladder of a different level. Or what Pakistan can do, what it is doing right now, bombing LOC, using its artillery to bomb LOC, and it has also resulted in loss of civilian lives along the line of control. Or what Pakistan can still do is wage war through thousand cuts. Still train these terrorists, take them through the line of control because the line of control is porous, difficult terrain, passing through the Karakoram ranges or the Pir Panjal ranges, which becomes very difficult to monitor. And sometimes, even through the harsh winters, these terrorists they enter the line of control and then launch attacks on the Indian population and the military establishment. These are the options that Pakistan can do. But at the same time, international community has to come together and put different pressure on Pakistan. One, that it has to take credible steps to dismantle the terror infrastructure on her soil. And at the same time, not escalate this matter further because if you retaliate, India is bound to retaliate as well, and it may lead to a full blown war. But something else as well, which is relevant for your examination. Both India as well as Pakistan, these are nuclear states. And this nuclear weapon that Pakistan has, it is using this nuclear weapon to blackmail the international community as well. If India does this, we will use nuclear weapons against India. And the world does not have an appetite for another conflict. For example, there are already so many conflicts in the world. There is the problem in Gaza because of Hamas and Israel conflict. There is problem in Syria. There is problem in the Sahel region in Africa. There is a war going on for last 3 years between Russia and Ukraine, and the world does not have the appetite to risk another conflict between two nuclear powers, India and Pakistan. And for that, we have nuclear non first use policy. That means we have categorically stated that India will not be the first one to use nuclear weapons against a foreign country. We will use our nuclear weapons only if we are attacked with nuclear weapons. So there is one thing called nuclear deterrence, which we have managed and established between India and Pakistan. But maybe what we need is to revisit this non first use policy. Maybe we can say that we are not going to use nuclear weapons against those who do not possess nuclear weapons. Number one, that's what we have said. Number two, we will not use nuclear weapons against any other country. But can we not change our no first use doctrine specifically with respect to Pakistan and tell the world community that we are not going to use the nuclear weapons in the first instance against any other country, against any country which does not have a nuclear weapons, but we are not going to follow this policy when it comes to Pakistan because we are facing repeated threats from Pakistan and attacks from that terrorist country. Maybe that is what we need, a nuclear non first use policy for the rest of the world, but this policy will not apply to the state of Pakistan. And that is what is going to put additional pressure on Pakistan as well as the world community, so that world community and the friends of Pakistan, such as the Saudi and the UAE, can put pressure on Pakistan to dismantle terror infrastructure. Because Operation Surgical Strikes, which were carried out after Uri attacks, it did not deter Pakistan. The surgical strikes which were carried out, Operation Balakot, it also did not deter Pakistan. So we don't even know whether Operation Sindoor is going to further deter Pakistan as well. So we need these continuous, consistent reminders to Pakistan that we are not going to keep calm and accept your repeated onslaughts on us, and we are not going to sit down and accept it. Maybe the time is to revisit this nuclear non first use policy specifically for Pakistan. That is what you need to understand from this topic. But something else as well. Pakistan's complex web of terror networks, written by Mr. Brijesh Singh. Brijesh Singh is the senior IPS officer. He is also an author. United States and USSR. Listen to me carefully. You need to understand the origin of these terror infrastructures in Pakistan can be important for your interview as well. When the Second World War got over, the world became bipolar. Two superpowers emerged, United States and USSR. And that is then what led to a period of Cold War between these two powerful countries, superpowers. Although no ammunition was fired, no missiles were fired, no war actually broke out between these two countries, but there was always a danger, this Damocles sword hanging on our heads, that there can be a war between US and USSR. And they were almost at the brink of the war because of various situations which arose. United States foreign policy was always that we have to control the spread of communism or socialism in the rest of the world. So these newly emerged independent sovereign countries in Asia and Africa, they should not embrace socialism or communism. They should embrace capitalism, and they should be favoring United States because the world is now bipolar. That is why India was not always a friend or considered a friend by United States, because we charted out our own independent foreign policy called non-alignment. We will not align with either of the two world powers. But Pakistan did not do that. Pakistan joined the US led bloc called CENTO, Central Treaty Organization, which was a military alliance. And then Pakistan and United States were closer to each other. Now, Pakistan and USSR, what is their relationship to Afghanistan? So what are you saying? Why discuss this? Afghanistan is considered to be the graveyard of empires. Whoever tried to occupy, control, and colonize Afghanistan ultimately went back defeated. This we saw in case of Britain because of the Anglo-Afghan wars in 1800s. Then we also saw this with USSR because USSR was controlling Afghanistan till 1980s. And then we saw this with United States as well. United States disappeared from Afghanistan a couple of years ago. So Afghanistan is considered to be the graveyard of empires. But the point is, when USSR and United States, they were in this period of Cold War, and USSR was controlling Afghanistan. Now, how can we ensure that USSR is defeated in Afghanistan? This is how United States funded Pakistan. How? The CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency of United States, and it is no secret now, started funding Pakistan. Why? Because Pakistan will train these jihadists, young men, indoctrinate them based on the Islamic philosophy, and that philosophy is considered to be Al Hadith philosophy, Al Hadith doctrine, which is a very narrowed version of Islam, which believes in the violence as well. So, this doctrine was indoctrinated into these young minds of Afghan people, and they were told that it is your religious duty, it is the jihad, that you have to wage war against these socialists or communists of USSR. With the money, with the arms and ammunition provided by US and other countries of the Western powers, Pakistan started training these jihadists, and these jihadists then got trained in Afghanistan, and they waged a war against USSR, and USSR disappeared from Afghanistan. This led to the emergence of Taliban in Afghanistan. But then Pakistan thought that we are going to serve multiple purposes through this adventure. We will use one set of jihadists to target USSR. We will use these jihadists again in the form of crossing the line of control and waging war against India and bleed India through thousand cuts. So the same money, same resources that we are getting from United States, we can use them for multiple purposes. One, to serve United States because they have the objective of defeating USSR, and then to serve our purpose as well, which is to bleed India to thousand cuts. And that is how various terror organizations were created, funded, supported by Pakistan. And now Pakistan has admitted this. Former president of Pakistan and former army chief as well, General Pervez Musharraf, he has accepted that we were doing the dirty work of United States in Afghanistan and in Pakistan. The current prime minister has said the same thing. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari has said the same thing. The foreign minister of Pakistan has said the same thing, that for a long time we have been doing the dirty work of United States. So they have accepted that we are running a terror factory in Pakistan, previously to suit US needs and now to suit our needs. So it is no secret that Pakistan has been training and weaponizing these terrorists to launch a war against Pakistan, against India. And of all these terror networks in Pakistan, there are few ones which are prominent. Prominent one, we have Jaish-e-Mohammed, which was started by Masood Azhar. Masood Azhar was arrested in India, but then we had to release him because IC-814, the Indian Airlines plane, which was hijacked by terrorists and then diverted to Kandahar, which was then Taliban controlled territory, the capital of Taliban controlled Afghanistan. And then in exchange for the hostages, we had to release three dreaded terrorists. One of them was Masood Azhar, who later on founded Jaish-e-Mohammed. And they have their headquarters in Bahawalpur, which is in Punjab, which was attacked in Operation Sindoor. And this Jaish is responsible not only for Uri attack, but also responsible for the parliament attack of December 2001. And it is also responsible for the Pulwama attack, which was carried out in February 2019. The other is Lashkar-e-Toiba, which has its headquarters and the training ground in Muridke, which is 40 kilometers from Lahore. And it has terror camps in Pakistan occupied Kashmir as well. And then we have Harkat al-Mujahideen as well. These are three prominent terror infrastructure networks in Pakistan, which are funded by Pakistani ISI, which are funded through secret fundings as well. And majority of the funding they receive through charity. Because let's also not absolve Saudi from this role. Saudi Arabia also believes in the Al Hadith philosophy, and it was their foreign policy also to promote and spread this philosophy to the rest of the Islamic world. And that is how Saudi government, as well as the so-called philanthropists in Saudi Arabia, they would also provide funding in the form of charity to these organizations. And that is how they receive the funding. And then in Pakistan, we also have Haqqani Network. Haqqani Network, the leader who is Sirajuddin Haqqani, he is now the Afghanistan's interior minister, despite the fact that he has a bounty on its head imposed by United States because he is a terrorist. So Pakistan's ties are with Haqqani Network. Pakistan's ties are with the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan as well. Although Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is also waging another battle against Pakistani state in Afghanistan and in Pakistan, but even then they have close ties. Despite the fact that FATF kept Pakistan under grey list for many, many years, right from 2018, although now it is no longer under FATF grey list, Pakistan is still managing to support financially these terror organizations because they just changed the nomenclature. So if it was Lashkar-e-Toiba, the name got changed to Jamaat-ud-Dawa. So with the change in the nomenclature, you are coming out of the radar of the enforcement agencies. That is what you have to keep. Is the history of Pakistan's terror network, prominent terror organizations, and how they receive funding. And despite being placed under FATF's grey list, they still manage to fund them because they just changed the nomenclature. That is what you have to keep in mind from this newspaper article. Okay? Any questions as of now? Okay. Now let's look at another editorial, a step up. Yesterday in our Hindu newspaper analysis, we spoke of Human Development Index, a report which was released by UNDP, United Nations Development Program, and I have also told you about the origin. In 1990, Human Development Report was released by United Nations Development Program, which was authored by Pakistani economist Mehboob ul Haq, with the assistance from Amartya Sen as well, the Nobel laureate from India. And they said that one way of measuring the development of a nation is GDP. But GDP may not capture the full development of a nation. We need a different index to look at the development of a country, and which should be looked at into three parameters from the three parameters. One is what is the lifespan of an individual? The second is educational opportunities that citizens get. And third is the standard of living. So we have to measure the development and prosperity of a country by looking at how many years of schooling do the children of these countries assume. At the same time, what is their life expectancy? Is it increasing or decreasing? And what is the standard of living? In 1990, our average was 58.6 years, average life expectancy. And in 2023, for which for the year this report has been released in 2025, we have gone up to 72 years, which is highest since this index was released in 1990. And at the same time, we see that children, they are expected to stay in school for 13 years in 2023. And in 1990, this was 8.2 years. That means, on an average, the children in India, they stay in school for 13 years. And in 1990, when the index was released for the first time, it was 8.2. So we have made considerable progress. And also in standard of living, we have increased massively. It was $2,167 in 1990, and now it is more than $9,000 in 2023. The per capita income is also increasing. But despite the fact that we have improved upon our performance, in the last HDI, we were ranked 133. But now in 2023, we are ranked 130. That means we have improved upon this score and we have advanced by 3 points. Even then, there are problems. What are the problems? The problems are with respect to gender inequality. Gender inequality in the sense women do not get strong political empowerment in India, despite the fact that we have 106th constitutional amendment, which mandates not less than one third of the seats in Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly should be reserved for women. But this women's reservation will not enter into force unless and until there is census followed by delimitation exercise. And at the same time, there is declining participation of women in economy. So in labor participation force, the women's participation is much, much lesser, despite the fact that we've improved upon it, but the performance has not been satisfactory. And at the same time, look at the question for your practice. Despite India's significant economic growth in recent decades, its human development index have remained relatively low. Critically examine the reasons behind this paradox, because paradox is economic growth is increasing, but HDI indicators we are not at the good ranking. What is this paradox? Critically examine the reasons behind this paradox and suggest measures to improve India's human development outcomes, particularly in health, education, and income equality. Clear? Great. Now let's look at another column, the road to regulatory reform. And one author of this column is Sanjeev Bikhchandani, a noted investor who has invested in companies such as the Naukri.com, has also been the early backer of Zomato, and one of the most respectable investors in India. And you know, when an article is written by an investor, he would have the investor sentiment in his mind and he would talk about the business, may not be talking about the people who make that business. So, that is the disclaimer that you have to keep in mind before you read this article. When we look at the economy, there are three major sectors of the economy. One is the primary sector, which you would know would include agriculture. The secondary sector, for example, manufacturing. The tertiary sector, for example, services. Normally, what happens throughout the world, as the nation grows, as the economy grows, the contribution of agriculture comes down and the contribution of the other sectors increase. Normally, also, what happens is that the manufacturing sector, the secondary sector, is the main driver of the growth of the economy of a country. But India, we have seen a reverse. India is one of the only exceptions amongst the major economies of the world where our economic growth is driven by service sector and not the manufacturing sector. So service sector still contributes 55% to the Indian economy. And manufacturing sector, it is argued, contributes roughly 17.5% to the Indian economy. Whereas it should have been reverse. Manufacturing sector should have contributed more because manufacturing sector is where more jobs are created. And that is why the allegation against the Indian growth story is said to be it is a jobless growth. We have seen growth, but it has not led to an increase in the jobs for the people. That is why unemployment rate is also high because service sector is not more contributing to the employment, although it is contributing to the economy. And these writers, they say why manufacturing sector is not contribute more to the economy as service sector because of the Indian regulators. So there is enough regulation on manufacturing sector. How many plants can you set up? Inspection of these plants. There used to be a license Raj or the permit system. And thanks to the economic liberalization which took place in 1991, we have ushered in economic reforms when PV Narasimha Rao was the prime minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh was the finance minister, and we, under the threat of IMF, we also liberalized our economy. We said that we are not going to further nationalize any company in India. We are going to dismantle the permit Raj system. What you produce, how much you produce, at what cost you produce, we are not going to interfere. So that regulatory Raj was crippled after 1991, but still, for manufacturing sector, there was this Damocles sword of regulation. And then these writers, they say that when the regulators or the Indian state realized that it is the service sector which is contributing more to the Indian economy, which is leading and driving the economic growth in India, then they started regulating the service sector as well. And they cite the example of corruption. For example, they say that we were setting up an office and an inspector came and said, show me where is the snake pit? Snake pit, which is used to trap the snakes. And according to the regulation, every establishment should have a snake pit, but there was none. And then this inspector told these people, don't worry, since nobody is having the snake pit, you also don't have it, but give me something. Bribe. So these writers are basically saying that India is an exception. where the Indian economy is driven by the service sector, whereas it should have been the manufacturing sector driving Indian economy, contributing more to the Indian economy. And the reason is more regulation, horrible regulation on the manufacturing sector, and which now has been introduced and indoctrinated into the service sector as well. Now we see more regulation, repeated inspections, guidelines, so on and so forth. That is why India is still ranking very poor, abysmally poor in the ease of doing business. And China, on the other hand, is ranking one of the best performing countries in terms of ease of doing business. So the number of hours it takes to set up a business in China and compare it to India or even Vietnam, that is where India is lacking. We have to provide ease of doing business to entrepreneurs in India. And that is why these two writers are calling for the road to regulatory reform. And what do they suggest? They suggest some reforms, such as land and labor reforms, which they say is critical for entrepreneurs. For example, land should be easily available for entrepreneurs to acquire to set up companies, factories in India. For example, if you have to set up a factory or an office in the form of a building, now if this building is on the flight path and of a particular height, you have to seek approval from the Airports Authority of India. One simple reform can be, if there is a building that I set up, it is not in the flight path, I should get automatic approval. I don't have to go to Airports Authority of India. Make it easier for buildings to be set up, offices to be set up, establishments to be set up. And if the height of my building is below a level, is not at the levels mandated by the Airports Authority of India, then I should not be seeking the approval of the Airport Authority of India. So we have to make it easier for people and entrepreneurs to set up offices. This is what we call ease of doing business. So there should be automatic approvals for land, for buildings. And this is where we can use technology as well. Not just this, make approvals transparent and hassle free. For example, all the documents that I need to prepare and make and submit, those lists of documents should be available online. But sometimes what happens? Inspectors come for inspection. Where is this document? I would say this document is not available online. So I was not required to make this document. Said, no, we have changed those rules. Now you need this document as well, this NOC as well, this no objection certificate as well. And this is what is leading to a regulator Raj as well, making it difficult for businesses to thrive and establish in India. And that is why these writers say, mention all the list of documents, NOCs that we want for this company, make them available online so that tomorrow an inspector cannot come us, where is this document? Where is the fire services NOC? Where is the water supply NOC? If I was not required to prepare these documents according to the guidelines available online, I should not be forced to submit these documents later. So, which means no deviation from the official process should be allowed. If officially on online you have mentioned that these documents should have been prepared, nothing else should I be forced to prepare. And at the same time, can we not entrust this responsibility to an independent third party? Because there is corruption. For example, fire services giving an NOC to a building which does not have a fire exit route also. Look what is happening in the Delhi based IAS coaching institutes. Fire services department NOC is provided to an institute, but even this institute does not have a fire exit route. There is corruption. Instead, entrust this responsibility to a third party or self. Without any external approval, I should be able to establish my building, and I will ensure that I have the fire exit plan, I have the safety plan, I have all the electrical plans in place. Tomorrow, if there is a mishap, then you can fix me. Otherwise, I should not be going after these NOCs. And at the same time, there can be inspections. 100% you have to do inspections to see whether the establishment is following all the norms as well. But it should be once a year. And that too after prior information. Because now what is happening, according to these writers, there is random inspection happening at any point in time. And then there is this possibility of bribe as well. That is red tapeism. That is corruption, which is fueling the system. These writers further talk about the gig economy. For example, the delivery boys or the delivery women, whether they're working in Zomato or Swiggy or in various other companies. There are states such as Karnataka, Telangana, who are trying to bring in a law to treat these gig workers as employees because employees have a lot of benefits. You have childcare leave, you have paternal leave, you have maternity benefit act applicable to an employee, you have all the pensions, gratuity, or the insurance available. If gig workers are treated as employees, it is going to further increase the cost for this employer. And then this thriving gig economy can be disturbed, according to these writers. So they are saying that don't treat gig workers as employees. But yes, we can give them benefit. We can give them pension, health insurance as well. We can give them leaves as well. But don't treat them as employees because you're going to further cannibalize this economy. And if we want to make India a developed India, a Viksit Bharat by 2047, for that we need consistent 8% year on year growth. And that can only happen if we are going to reform our regulatory mechanism. If we are not going to kill it further by treating gig workers as employees. That is the crux of this article written by these two. Here, let's look at another article. Symbol Rao, focus on local body polls, Supreme Court tells Shiv Sena. Now, what to understand from this topic is para 15 of the symbols order and a new rule which was introduced in 1997. What do we mean by that? For example, there is a political party A, and this political party got split. What is the role of the Election Commission of India in the split of a political? For example, I'll tell you about CPI, Communist Party of India. Way back in 1964, it got split into CPIM. And then CPIM approached the Election Commission of India and said, please treat us as a separate political party because we have split from the Communist Party of India. Election Commission of India decided and looked at how many MLAs and MPs support this new faction of this political party. And then Election Commission of India has thought that if majority of the MPs are supporting this new faction, and they have these MPs from more than 4 states as well, Election Commission of India declared that CPIM is a national political party. That means recognize CPIM, a breakaway faction of CPI, as a separate political party and recognized it as a national political party as well, because these MPs, they have the support in more than 4 states as well. What about the remaining leftover? CPI was a separate political party. Long story. Here is a political party, and a faction of this political party decides to split, decides to break away, decides to make a different political party. Election Commission of India, by looking at the number of MPs and MLAs supporting them, they would treat them and recognize them as separate political parties. But a new rule was made in 1997. What was the new rule? All these MPs and MLAs who are now part of CPIM, but they contested election on the basis of the symbol of the CPI, on the basis of the ticket which was given by the CPI. That is why in 1997, Election Commission of India said, now if there is a split, if from one political party, another political party is trying to emerge, we will not recognize this political party. Then what we will do, if this political party later on contest election And then, basis on the performance of this political party in the next election, then we will recognize whether that political party is a national political party or a state political party. Sir, what are you trying to say? Long story short, if now there is a split in a political party, now let's say Congress party gets split and a new wing is created, this party will not be recognized by Election Commission of India. This party, if it contests elections later, bases the performance of this political party in the next election, then the Election Commission of India will recognize whether it's a state political party or a national political. But this is about a split. Shiv Sena case is different. Shiv Sena got split a couple of years ago in 2021. One faction was led by Mr. Shinde. The other faction was led by Mr. Uddhav Balasaheb Thackeray. Now, this time, Shinde faction is not saying we are a new political party, so recognize us as a different political party. No. Shinde faction is saying we are the real Shiv Sena. In such a situation, what is the role of the Election Commission of India? This faction is not saying recognize us as a different political party. They are saying we are the real Shiv Sena. And for that, the role of the Election Commission of India becomes important. Because Election Commission of India will decide which faction is the real political party. Because who will get the name and the symbol of this political party? Who will be called Shiv Sena? Who will get the bow and the arrow symbol of the Shiv Sena? That will be decided by the Election Commission. Only if the split is in a recognized political party. What if there is a split in a registered political party? Because political parties may be either registered or recognized. If you register with the Election Commission of India, you are a registered political party. But over a period of time, basis your performance in the elections, you can be also recognized. Recognized as a state political party, recognized as a national political party. For example, BJP, Congress, Aam Aadmi Party, these are national political parties. Samajwadi Party, Telugu Desam Party, Janata Dal United, these are state political parties. So if there is a split in a recognized political party, Election Commission of India will adjudicate that, resolve that. But if there is a split in a registered political party, Election Commission of India does not get involved. That can be important for your prelims examination. Election Commission of India asks this, tells, guides, advises this registered political party that you resolve your dispute yourself or you go to the court, don't come to us. We are here to resolve the split in a recognized political. How will Election Commission of India resolve that? Basis the judgment given by the Honorable Supreme Court in Sadiq Ali case way back in 1971. And what is that case all about? What is this judgment all about? If there is a split in Shiv Sena, some support Uddhav Thackeray, some support Eknath Shinde. And both of them are claiming that we are the real Shiv Sena. They are not saying recognize us as a different political party, treat us as a different political party. They are saying we are the real Shiv Sena. How will Election Commission of India decide which of these two factions is the real Shiv Sena? Who will get the name of the Shiv Sena? Who will get the symbol, bow, and the arrow of the Shiv Sena? For that, Election Commission of India has to follow this test prescribed by the Supreme Court in Sadiq Ali case. This is called a triple test. Election Commission of India will look at what is the aim and the objective of the party, because every political party has a constitution, their own constitution, and that constitution copy they have to give to the Election Commission of India. Now, Election Commission of India will look at the constitution of that political party. Is there any mention of who is the office bearer, how the office bearers are appointed? We will first look at the constitution. We will then look at the constitution and see who are the office bearers, what is their contribution, how they are appointed, and basis that we will decide. And then we will decide on the basis of the majority. Majority in the sense, listen carefully. Now, this is Shiv Sena, one led by Mr. Shinde and the other led by Uddhav Balasaheb Thackeray. Matter goes to the Election Commission. Election Commission of India will look at what is the party constitution talking about of the Shiv Sena. What is the aim and objective of this political party? Second, it will look at who are the office bearers of this political. Third, it will look at what is the majority. Majority in the sense this political party has an organization wing. This political party has a legislative wing. That means there are office bearers. There is Pratinidhi Sabha of the Shiv Sena. Who are the office bearers of the Shiv Sena? And who are the legislators belonging to Shiv Sena? Legislators, MLAs, MLCs, MPs of Lok Sabha, MPs of Rajya Sabha. And then we will decide which faction commands majority in the organization, which faction commands majority in the legislature. And then accordingly, we will decide. When this matter reached the Election Commission of India, Election Commission of India said it is Mr. Shinde's faction, which is the real Shiv Sena. Why? Because Election Commission of India said the constitution of Shiv Sena, which was adopted in 1999, although the political party was set up in 1970s, 60s, but the constitution which was last modified and followed was that of 1999. But then this constitution was amended in 2018. But the copy of this amendment was not given to Election Commission of India. So we are not going to test the party constitution. Because the constitution which was amended of the Shiv Sena was amended in 2018. The updated copy was not given to us. So we can't test the majority on the basis of the constitution. And at the same time, when you amended this constitution, you gave more powers to the party president, which is undemocratic. Now listen to me carefully. This is a very important point. Does Election Commission of India play a role in managing the internal democracy of a political party? Yes. Election Commission of India has to ensure that a political party functions in a democratic fashion. If you are giving more power to a party leader, then it is not a democratic political party, it is undemocratic. And since the constitution of Shiv Sena gave more powers to the party president, it is undemocratic. So we will not test it on the basis of the constitution of Shiv Sena. But sir, all parties are then undemocratic. There is a family which controls the oldest political party in India. There are two men which control the political party in power right now. But at least on the face of it, according to the constitution, the real power is with the Central Working Committee, CWC, of the Congress Party. The real power is with the Parliamentary Committee or the Working Committee of the BJP. The power is not given to one person or one man or one woman. That is why, although in functioning they may be undemocratic, but on paper they are democratic. On paper, Shiv Sena was undemocratic because it gave more powers to the party president. That is why it is undemocratic. And that is why Election Commission of India said it does not promote internal party democracy. And the only way in which we can decide whether Shinde or Uddhav Thackeray faction is the real Shiv Sena is on the basis of the majority. And that too majority in the legislative wing, because we cannot test it on the basis of the organization. Because organization's composition will be decided by the constitution of the party, which we do not recognize. Then we have to test it on the basis of the legislative wing's majority. And here, majority of the MLAs, MPs, MLCs, they support Mr. Shinde. Shinde faction is the real Shiv Sena. Uddhav Thackeray faction, led by their lawyer Kapil Sibal, they approached the Supreme Court and challenged the Election Commission's order, which gave Shinde faction the symbol and the name of the Shiv Sena. And since local body elections are to be conducted in Maharashtra, which we discussed yesterday as well, Uddhav Thackeray's faction approached the Supreme Court. Can you please hear our plea? We want to take our party back. We want to take our name back. We want to take our symbol back. Supreme Court has said In any case, the local body elections are not fought on party name or party symbol. Go and prepare for the party polls. We will discuss your case later. But from this topic, what you need to understand is what is this para 15 of the symbols order? What is this new rule of 1997? How Election Commission of India gets involved in the recognizing splits in a recognized political party and does not get involved in the split of a registered political party. And what is the Sadiq Ali judgment of 1971, which is very, very important. And at the same time, look at this question for your mains practice. Discuss the legal framework that empowers the Election Commission of India to adjudicate disputes related to splits in political parties. Critically examine the implications of such decisions on internal party democracy and federal politics in India. You may have a question on your mind. Sir, what if there is a split in a political party X into group 1 and group 2? An election commission of India is unable to decide which is the real political party, which is the real X. In this case, what will happen? In this case, Election Commission of India will freeze the party name, will freeze the party symbol as well, and tell both these factions that you can have your different name, you can have a different symbol, because we are now freezing the symbol and the name of this political party because we are unable to decide which faction is the real political party. Okay? Great. Now let's look at the last column that we have to discuss today: reimagining access to justice and rectifying systemic barriers. This is basically a review of two books, Legally Yours and Tariq Pe Justice. But it has important insights for your GS paper too. Let's try and understand. Judiciary in India is under crisis. Crisis, for example, we discussed yesterday how the Honorable Vice President of India alleged that judiciary is becoming a super parliament. There is no accountability as well, so on and so forth. And it is misusing its powers under Article 142. And in the words of Vice President, Article 142 is a nuclear missile, which the Supreme Court is misusing. But when it comes to public confidence in Indian judiciary is also on a decline. Why? Because we saw from the residence of a Delhi High Court judge, burnt currency notes were recovered. Although there is an in house committee which is looking into these allegations, and in all likelihood, according to various newspaper reports, this in house committee has confirmed that yes, these burnt currency notes were recovered from the House of Justice Verma, who was the Delhi High Court judge. What action will be taken, that we will have to wait and watch. But this prompted judiciary to open up. And now Supreme Court has said that all the assets and the details of the assets of the Supreme Court judges as well as the High Court judges will be put out on the website of the Supreme Court and the respective high courts. And yesterday in the Indian Express newspaper, you would have read that there were full details of all the assets owned by the judges of the Supreme Court. How many cars are these judges owning? What is their fixed assets? What is the amount of gold or silver that they own? All these details, which means more transparency. But still, the public confidence in the judiciary is on a decline. Reason number one, the recovery of the half burnt currency notes from the residence of the Delhi High Court judge. Second, the judge of Allahabad High Court gave a communal speech when he was attending a meeting of the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, VHP. Because of these two reasons, public confidence, according to this writer, is on a decline in Indian judiciary. And then something else, bulldozer action. What is this bulldozer action? There is a conflict which has taken place. A clash has taken place between two religious communities. Now the police comes The municipality authorities come with the bulldozer. And those who are accused of this communal conflict, their house is bulldozed, their property is bulldozed. And these municipal authorities, they say that we are not doing this because you are accused in this crime or you're accused in this communal conflict. We are doing this because this is an illegally unauthorized construction and we are just demolishing unauthorized construction. And that is why then monikers bulldozer mama, bulldozer baba was given by the people to political leaders. Matter went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said no, this is unconstitutional because right to shelter is a fundamental right. By demolishing the houses of accused, you're not only attacking them, you're attacking also those who have nothing to do with that violence. And in any case, you cannot demolish the houses of accused. But yes, you can clear illegal constructions, unauthorized construction. But for that, you have to give them notice. Then you have to wait for the reply to that notice. Then you have to wait again for 15 days and then demolish if it is an illegal construction, unauthorized construction. But despite the strict orders of the Supreme Court in this bulldozer action case, bulldozers are still being used, which means you are testing the role of the judiciary, testing the powers of the judiciary, testing the authority of the judiciary. So on one hand, there is crisis in the judiciary. On the other hand, there is a test on the judiciary whether it can follow up on its judicial pronouncement. Then this writer says, Tariq Pe Justice, a book which is written by Chitrakshi Jain and Prashant Reddy. It offers enormous insights. And what are these insights? There is pendency of cases. More than 5 crore cases are pending in different courts in this country. And the biggest culprit is the district court. This is where more than 3 crore cases are pending. There is pendency in the Supreme Court as well, but less than 1 lakh cases are pending in Supreme Court. There is pendency in high courts as well, but more pendency is there in the district court. And district court is the first court where you and me can go. And what do you think is the reason? We were told that the reason is that there is low judges to population ratio. The infrastructure at these district courts is very, very poor, which leads to frequent adjournments, as immortalized by Sunny Deol in Damini, wherein he said, Tariq pe Tariq pe Tariq. In this court, I get date, but not justice. So, this is what we were told, that there is massive pendency of cases in district courts because there is low judges to population ratio, because the infrastructure is very poor, which leads to frequent adjournments, so on and so forth. But according to this book, Tariq Pe Justice, that is not the reason. The real reason is something else. And the real reason, according to these writers, is that these district judges, they fear retribution. Retribution in the sense, whenever these district judges, they hear a political case which is against the political bosses and they give a judgment against them, action is taken against these district judges and they are arbitrarily dismissed from the service. Hence, they fear giving judgments in these important cases because if they give judgment against the political bosses, they may be removed. How are they removed? On the basis of the inquiry conducted by high courts. But how high courts conduct this? On what basis do they dismiss these district judges? They do that on hearsay, not on solid proof, but on hearsay. Afwah, as we call it, which means there is lack of transparency. Lack of transparency in how high courts deal with these district judges and disciplinary action against these judges. And these district judges, they have basically stopped working. And that is how the pendency of cases are increasing. Not stopped working literally, stopped working in against the political bosses in politically sensitive cases. Not just that. How many cases are actually pending in India? How do we get to know? There is an online system, and that online system is called NJDG, National Judicial Data Grid. And according to this data, this is part of India's e-courts mission. Since the year 2005, we have spent 2,308 crores on this National Judicial Data Grid, which tells us how many cases are pending in India in various courts in this country. But do you know what the problem is? NJDG gives a disclaimer. Just like when you go to a movie, to a multiplex to watch a movie, there is a disclaimer. All the characters in this movie are purely fictitious. Any resemblance to any person living or dead is purely unintentional. No animals were harmed during the filming of this movie. That disclaimer. There is a disclaimer that this National Judicial Data Grid also gives. And the disclaimer is we cannot confirm that this data which is there on this grid is accurate. Which means even if this data grid tells us that there are these crores of cases pending, we may not even trust that data because the grid is itself saying, despite spending 2,308 crore, that this is not an authentic data. We cannot confirm the authenticity of this data. Then should we not be discussing this in the parliament? Should we not be discussing the performance of the judges in the parliament? But we are unable to do that. Why? Because there is Article 121 of the Constitution, which says you cannot discuss the conduct of judges in the parliament unless and until you want to remove that particular judge. So, only when you have to remove a particular judge, only then you can discuss the conduct of that judge, because that's why you want him to be removed or she to be removed. But why can't we generally discuss the performance of the judiciary? What is wrong with this grade? Why are the cases pending? Why is there a judicial lacuna? There is loophole. That is why some reforms are suggested in this article. And reform is that we should have separate hierarchy of courts, just like we have in United States, where there will be one court which will be there to discharge duties under the parliamentary law and another under the state law. That means we should have a split judicial system in India, where one set of judiciary should only be there to look into the parliamentary laws, offenses under the parliamentary laws, disputes under the laws passed by the parliament. And there would be separate judiciary which will look into the offenses against the state laws. That's how we can resolve the pendency of the cases. That's number one. Number two, these writers, they call for revival of the jury service. What is this jury service? It used to happen in India before the Rustom case, or before that case which was immortalized in the movie Rustom, where if there is a dispute, rather than a judge hearing this, you have to convince the members of the civil society, part of the jury. You have to convince them that I am not guilty. If we bring in jury service back in India, it is going to engage or enhance the civic engagement with the public. People will be directly involved in the judicial process. That is how we can enhance the prestige of the judiciary back. So these writers, they are claiming we should revive the jury service, jury system in India, and we should have what we call restructuring of judiciary to mirror the US model, where we have two parallel hierarchies of courts, one looking into the parliamentary law, one to adjudicate disputes under the parliamentary law, and the other to adjudicate disputes under the. That is the crux of this book, Tariq Pe Justice. Then there is another book called Legally Yours, written by Mansi Chaudhary. She says that we don't have to only look at judicial literacy, that there are laws for us. The problem is we are not aware of our rights, which means there is declining judicial literacy. But even if you are aware of your rights, you are aware of the laws, you also need to know how these laws can be used for your benefit. As women, you may be aware that there are laws which protect you, prevent you from onslaught. But National Family Health Survey says 29.3% of the married Indian women in the age group of 18 to 49, 29.3%, they have experienced domestic and sexual violence. Out of these, 87% they do not seek help, which means you should not only make women aware of their rights or the laws which favor them, you should also make them aware of how these laws can be employed to better protect your grievances. That is the crux of this book called Yours, written by Mansi. And that brings us to the closure of this discussion. If you have got the benefit of attending this session, then we will meet again tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the morning. 6 o'clock is normally when I take the plus class. 10 o'clock in the morning. Till then, have a great time. All the best. Bye bye. Stay safe.